Welcome to Punch Club 2, the ultimate life simulation experience where our goal is to climb to the top of the fighter rankings while also uncovering a deep mystery that has remained unsolved for generations. In this video, you'll be joining me on my journey to 100 days as I create my fighter from scratch, build up my skills, and take on some of the biggest, baddest opponents in this retro-inspired cyberpunk world. So sit back with a nice cool glass of milk and get ready for an insane story full of twists and turns. Welcome to the 80s, baby. Like all good sequels, we begin with an expository flashback. This covers the basic events of Punch Club 1, which will be important for those of you who for some reason have not yet watched my first video. If that's you, go on, I'll wait. Okay, now that you're all caught up, this is our protagonist. Currently, it seems that we are a giant man baby with mummy issues and no father figure. Before we can uncover our potential as a blossoming MMA superstar, our first goal is to acquire food. Unfortunately, our futuristic food printer has broken, and we learn that mum won't cook for us. She's a bitch. I head next door to see our neighbour and good friend, Henry. Sadly for Henry, he's already hit his peak, and now he spends his days inside with the curtains drawn, watching retro movies. We inform Henry of the humanitarian crisis that's unfolding at home, and he generously gives us money to buy us both breakfast from the Quickie Mart. We head there and oh Jesus, what has happened to our poo? It seems that our loyal convenience store operator has been given the Futurama treatment and has been turned into a glorified aquarium. Before we can finish our transaction, we have a run-in with Bobo Jr., who tries to rob the store and then promptly beats me up. Is anyone else getting the sense that we've done this before? Anyway, because of our actions, we're taken to the police station. As we all know, snitches get stitches, so I keep my mouth shut and Bobo offers me a job as thanks. The police chief then proceeds to give a not-so-subtle explanation of this game's leveling system, which I will now shamelessly regurgitate to you. A chip has been inserted into our brain, the purpose of which is to keep track of our good person points, or GPP. This is a currency that is given to us by the government when we win fights and progress the game story. We can use our GPP to acquire new abilities and access different areas of the city. Once we reach 2,000 good boy points, we're allowed to become a police officer. And if we reach 9,000, we gain access to the coveted upper city. Personally, this whole GPP system sounds horribly dystopian, and I'm so glad something like this doesn't exist in real life. RoboCop also reveals to us a few details about our father. We head home to confront Mum about it. This is where we learn that after the events of the first game, our father mysteriously disappeared and was never seen again. That about wraps up the prologue, and now the game opens up into chapter 1. From here, we have a few different directions that we can go in the story. Our first course of action was to finish our initial quest and deliver Henry his burger. After that, we watched a retro movie, for which I was rewarded old school respect. This is a second type of currency that can be used to obtain buffs that remain with me permanently and make my life generally easier. I used my respect to acquire the slogger perk, which makes me more efficient at work. Which is good because I'm about to be doing a lot of working. I can buy more old school movies from Apu and earn them throughout the story, unlocking new perks each time. Our next stop is the gym, where we can begin our hero's journey by signing up for the Amateur Fighting League. Upon doing so, we were relentlessly bullied by this guy, Huey, who I guess is supposed to be our rival. To make myself feel better, I take my anger out on an unrelated opponent that is considerably smaller and weaker than me. For my act of bravery, the government rewards me with enough GPP to unlock the dodge and block. I go and visit Apu, and as thanks for preventing the robbery earlier, he offers me a job with his friend at the noodle bar downtown, and I'm just relieved that it's not more fucking pizza if I'm being honest. Is bro really doing a TikTok dance right now? Stop it. Disgusted, I leave to go see Bobo Jr. and his dad gives me a job as a slime puncher. I also meet the Russians at the junkyard, who give me a job bending metal. By consistently showing up to work, I can earn promotions for these jobs, which give me influence that I can use to buy consumables that give me various effects. Keep this in mind for later. I bend metal throughout the night and then punch slimes for most of day 3, before heading to the noodle bar for what would be my third consecutive shift. However, I was interrupted by this bloke who goes by K, and was a real downer. He's an ex-cop with a chip on his shoulder, so on day 4, I go and ask the sergeant about him. Plot twist, they used to be partners, but they don't get along anymore. This is due to the sergeant being a hologram. To make amends, RoboCop gives me K's old police badge, and he asks me to return it. Before doing that, I head home intending to cook myself some food, but Mum tells me off for being too loud. I give her the middle finger, then I go to Apu's, buy some Xanax and put her to sleep. While I was there, I noticed this guy just hanging out in the shadows, and every time I tried to approach him, he would run off screen. If anyone knows what he's about, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, now that Mum was zooted out of her mind, I cooked up a feed in the kitchen before having a quick nap. When I woke up, I headed downtown to find Kay and I returned his badge. Then he disappeared into the night. I sold noodles until dawn on day 5, before heading down to the new and improved Silver's gym. The friendly robot there gave me a tour and I had the chance to try out the neurotraining program, which, for a small fee, gives you all the benefits of a workout but without any of the effort. Once again, I worked through the night, and in anticipation of my next fight, I purchased the side punch and the middle kick. Day 6 and 7 were spent punching slimes and slinging noodles. Unfortunately for this bloke, day 8 was fight day. Afterwards, I got a surprisingly good massage from General Grievous before punching in at work. Get it? Punching in. That night, I got dirty on the D floor before buying another one of those old movies off Apu and heading back to Henry's house. The mystery movie was Rocky, or for copyright reasons, Stony. Watching it unlocked a few perks related to old school weight training. After that, it was back to work on day 9, and my goal was to close in on those promotions. Bobo Sr. promised me my first promotion on day 10, provided that I could beat up his only other worker. Sorry, Todd. After that, I only had a very small window of time to heal up and prepare for my next amateur fight, this time against an old enemy. That was embarrassing. I headed home and immediately started training on the speed bag, as this was the only piece of equipment I could afford. Between punching bags and punching slimes, I was able to get some strength up and prevent myself from going bankrupt. I was also able to get a promotion at the noodle shop after I calmly handled some customer feedback. With my new promotion, I unlocked the Taekwondo fighting style. Now that we've unlocked all the basic elements of combat, this is going to be the best time for me to explain how combat works this time around. Now, for anyone who knows the first game or has seen my video, it's literally exactly the same. Only difference being that there are different slots for different skills, and we have special passives. But if you're new to the series, combat in Punch Club 2 is not like your traditional beat 'em up game. In fact, you don't actually actively participate in the combat at all. Instead, it is a mixture of strategy and resource management. Obviously, the red bar is our health, and when it hits 0, we lose. We also have stamina. This is indicated by the green bar. If we run out of stamina, we cannot act offensively or defensively, and we will be susceptible to knockdowns. This is where the resource management comes in. Before each round, we are able to select the fighting style, skills, and abilities that we'd like our fighter to use. There are several fighting styles, all of which have strengths and weaknesses. Think of it as rock, paper, scissors. Provided that we have the style unlocked, we are able to change this on the fly if we ever find ourselves in an unfavorable fight. And it is up to us as the player to pick an effective arsenal of skills that are effective against our opponent and complement our fighting style. I used my new abilities against Songmo and took my revenge. I then headed home for some much needed sleep, but guess who started complaining as soon as I stepped foot inside the fucking house? Shut up! I promised my dear mother that I'd go out and get her some headache medicine. But along the way, I got distracted and ended up punching on with this Russian bloke in a robot factory. Eventually, I got what I needed from Apu, and I told Mum to shut the fuck up before heading to work. Before starting, Bobo Sr. tells me that one of his slimes has escaped into the sewers, and that I will be rewarded with another promotion if I can retrieve it for him. I head to the sewer system, which is a maze and honestly a little spooky. I did, however, find my missing right AirPod, so I guess it wasn't all bad. Eventually, I bump into Winky Tinky. This guy is a crazy whack job who lives in the sewers, and although I fought the good fight, I was beaten, insulted, and then I got thrown out of the sewers entirely. The next few days go by in a blur of eat, sleep, work, repeat. The most interesting thing to happen in this time was that I lost the fight against Mad Mike, but not because I suck at the game. I beat him up in the first round, but then I threw the fight on purpose as a favour to Silver, for which I was handsomely rewarded. Now that I was ready, I marched back down into the sewers and taught that Tin Man a serious lesson. A short but odoriferous time later, I had found the slimes. Bobo was pleased and he gave me a promotion. I now had enough reputation to buy consumables from his shop. What I really wanted was the slime juice, but that would come later. I had 2 days before my fight, so it was back to work. Today's fight was the rematch against Mad Mike, who was not ready for the ultra violence that was about to be inflicted on him. This win put me at rank 9, so I still had a long way to go before I hit the big leagues. I went home to catch some Z's, but I was interrupted by a phone call from little Bobo. I meet up with him in an abandoned building, and he teaches me how to hack my brain chip to give me perks. Naturally, the first perk I chose was one that helped me punch slimes. I test out my first upgrade and then start preparing for my fight against that shit-talking little rat Huey. Huey takes a nap in round 3 and I spend my GPP on the 100 wins dodge, which I guess is a little better than a regular dodge, I'm not really sure, but it sounds cool. I then head downtown to prepare for the night shift, where my boss was having a serious argument with a courier who had lost the weekly food order in the sewer. Somehow, this becomes my problem and I'm told to go and fetch it. Anyway, I stop off at Apu's for a snack, but that tinfoil wearing fuckwit and Huey are having an argument about the flat earth or something. I smacked him in the mouth and then prepared for my upcoming fight. I hit Boogie 2988 like a heart attack and he goes down. After the fight, I'm approached by a familiar face. It turns out that it's Casey from the first game. He recognized my fighting skills and asked to meet, where we could discuss more about my father. I meet Casey at what's left of Mick's old gym, and he tells me that although Mick is dead, we can restore his consciousness in the form of a hologram by talking with a so-called mad scientist. He also not so subtly hints that it's my problem to fix up the old gym. The mad scientist agrees to bring Mick back, but to do so, we need to smash up some old robots. Unfortunately, said robots were far too strong for me at the moment, so for the time being, we had hit a temporary roadblock. I used this downtime to gather my thoughts, as story-wise there was a whole heap of different things going on, and it was honestly getting a bit overwhelming. To break it down for you guys, there were 3 main missions that I was working to complete. First, I needed to become the Amateur League champion, which I could achieve in time just by training and winning my fights. Secondly, I had the job of bringing Mick back from the dead and fixing up his gym. Thirdly, I had to reach 2000 GPP and do some extra study to become a cop. I had some time to breathe before my next fight, so I focused all my energy into fully restoring my home gym to its former glory, with excellent features such as rusted plates, a moldy bench, a leaking speed bag, and a treadmill. That, to be fair, the treadmill was actually alright. All in all, this set me back around $400, but at least I had a somewhat decent place to work out. With 2 days to prepare, I bought a shitload of food and locked myself in the garage. This is where I would grind out my stats with no distractions, and before I knew it, I was bigger and stronger than ever before. Just ask Ruth. With another victory, I was ranked 5th on the ladder, and closer than ever to entering the big leagues. I squeezed in a sparring session with the GOAT himself before I got a call from the doc, telling me to get my ass to his lab. He asked me to deliver illegal augmentations to the police on the bridge, with the promise that I'd be rewarded. With only $1 to my name, I didn't really have a choice, and so I headed to the bridge to do some dirty dealings. Luckily, the cops are totally corrupt and were super cool about it. As an additional reward, Doc Emmett also gave me access to his shop, which was full of various augmentations. For now, I purchased a workout booster, which improves my training efficiency with barbells, bags, and stuff like that. This came at the cost of making neuro training less effective. After that, it was back to work for a few hours at the junkyard before coming home to eat and head straight back out again. The grind really never ends in this game. This is also the point where I discovered the slime juice. Now this shit was literally life-changing. It gave me a ton of energy at a cheap enough cost where I would never have to sleep again. Soon, it was fight time, against the notorious Mad Chad, who went down easily due to my foot repeatedly impacting his face. My skills were so impressive, in fact, that Ruth asked if we could spar, which must be a way of flirting in the Punch Club universe. I told her that I was far too busy. You know, working 3 jobs and all. Speaking of, noodles, slimes, bending, slimes, noodles, bending, slimes, noodles. For all my hard work, Bobo rewarded me with some overtime. I was sent to deliver lunch to the police on the bridge, which ended in a fight, because of course it did. Nothing interesting happened from here until fight day, where I faced off against Mad Chad's brother, Mad Matt. And although they looked nothing alike, you could tell that they were brothers, just due to how shit they both were at fighting. Afterwards, these ugly blokes are really mean to me for no reason. This is the point in the game where things slow down and become super grindy. I spent most of my time on my money routine, and whatever time was left was put straight into training or studying the laws. I kept myself awake 24 hours a day during this period via slime juice and just grinded. Usually this is where I'd put an epic montage of some kind, just because I think that they're fun to make, but I'm not going to do it this time simply due to the fact that I've had a montage sequence in literally all of my videos so far, and I'm conscious of it becoming a crutch. Anyway, during this time, I did manage to acquire the spin kick, which is just a fucking sick move. And my match against Mad Matt put me in 4th position on the ladder. Now that we were finished grinding, it was time to tie up some of Chapter 1's loose ends. I took the fight to the sewers against the G-Man and also found another AirPod. After that, it was fight time, and after a crushing victory, I was now the number 3 ranked fighter. I continued wrapping things up by fixing up the old gym and rearranging a few circuits so that Mick could be resurrected. I also stopped by Silver's to give the mechanic a hand. After all, this poor dude has been working on that same machine for months now. He explained to me that he was missing an essential piece that could only be acquired from a master of bending metal. The boss at the junkyard told me of a mythical man named Spoonboy, and for plot-related reasons, only Spoonboy could help me. And so I ventured under the bridge downtown in search of him. I explored the area. Here, I found a familiar-looking RV.
This is my own private domicile and I will not be harassed! Bitch!
And a guy who was selling steroids. Say no to drugs, kids. Once I was done messing around, it was actually quite easy to find Spoonboy because of all the, spoons around him. Anyway, Spoonboy fixed me up for the low price of $50 and then gave me a foreboding warning about using the extreme neurotrainer. I decided to ignore the little shit and jump in anyway, which may have resulted in minor brain damage. The last thing left to do was take the number 1 position in the amateur league and claim the Silver's Cup, and despite my brain damage, my opponent went down and I had 1 Silver's Cup. With that, the chapter came to a close. Does Milky's have what it takes to become the ultimate fighting champion? What secrets does the upper city hold? And will Mum ever stop being such a fucking bitch? Do you need to know the answers to these questions? Find out next time, where we clean up the streets and take on the biggest, baddest fighters in town. Thanks for watching.